We'd like to welcome Dan Liss to Quintessential Experiences. Dan, welcome. We're so happy to have you, myself and Marion Goodfellow and Mark L. Cowden. Um, do us a favor, tell us a little more about yourself and what you're passionate about. And we're very interested to hear your stories.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me here. And I just love doing what I do. And so getting the opportunity to talk about it is always nice. I make my full-time living as an energy healer, Reiki master, and also do various kinds of readings for people like tarot, past lives, so on, dream interpretations. So people, call on me for a variety of reasons. I also do house blessings. So that's one more additional thing too. Is sometimes the people's energy is messed up, and so is the house where they live. So you clear the people and the house sometimes. And so I do a variety of metaphysical services, but they're all geared around healing and helping people. And I have a home office where I work, and I also, of course, do Zoom calls for people far away. And sometimes people invite me to speak or be at public events, and I do that too. So, I keep a pretty active schedule. But it's interesting how, in doing my work, that I have, developed or attracted, like two spirit guides or nurses. Yeah, and it's like they always are helping out. It's kind of funny because it's like sometimes, like I've been working on somebody, and I've got her head in my hands, and then she'll say, "Well, that feels really good where you have your hands by my knees," and it's like they pop in that good sometimes, or so or somebody will say, "Well, I've got her hand in my hands," and then she says, "That feels good where your hands are on my feet." But I'm not even, of course, so my spirit guides even kick in to that way to where some people sense them that way. And I think it's just interesting too, because, for at the earlier parts of my career, like I've been doing tarot readings for like more than 40 years. And at first, when I moved out here, I asked my spirit guides, because people were only calling me for card readings. And so I said, "Well, do you guys still want me to do Reiki?" I said, if you want me to be still doing Reiki, have people, come to me for that. And within 2 days, people were calling for Reiki appointments.
That's amazing. When we ask for something, they have a roundabout way of granting it to us.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I think asking for signs and clarification is a really good thing. Because obviously in a situation like that, well, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And I truly, actually, these days, if I had a choice, I would, if people were to come to me for a service, I would rather if they came to me for energy healing or energy clearing rather than a tarot reading. Now, obviously, I love doing them and I do a lot of them, but you know what I mean? I really enjoy doing that energy healing work. I think sometimes even more than the other kinds of things I do. But of course, I'm not going to cut things out,
Dan, it's all healing.
Mm-hmm.
Tarot reading I do as well as my spiritual reading.
True.
And it's anything that we can do to alleviate anybody's suffering is a healing process. And I use every form that I can. I do numerology, I do tarot, and I am also a metaphysical healer. I'm healing from a distance. Mm-hmm. I'm not as clever at technology as obviously you are.
Yeah.
But I do want to assure you that even just doing a tarot reading is a great deal of healing for the person.
I completely agree with you. Completely. Because if you're doing a reading for somebody who, is coming to you because they're going through some kind of life crisis, then, you're helping them, even if it's, in this instance, giving them a fresh insight through your reading or a fresh idea or a different perspective. And that could be healing for them too. So you're actually doing some healing work as a part of reading. I completely agree. I just, what I think it is, I love the simplicity Like yesterday, I was working on somebody, and I put my hands, because she said her back was hurting. Put my hands on her back, and like immediately she started feeling better and telling me that. I mean, like within minutes. But sometimes when you do a reading for somebody, you know, um, maybe you don't hear back till later or anything from them, or if
Yeah.
during the reading they may be skeptical, but then here a month later or something, they're gonna say, "Hey, guess what just happened?" But you know what I mean. I love the simplicity, the immediacy of if I place my hands on somebody and they immediately start telling me they feel better. It's like that immediate feedback.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, you get that. Oh, I'm doing it. That something's happening. Yeah,
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
I do understand that.
Yeah.
Dan, you mentioned you do past life readings.
Yes.
Where did your interest in past life readings come from?
It started with actually Brian Weiss was the person I learned from.
Okay.
Um, but my interest in it started from me simply wanting more information for myself,
Okay.
because I was wondering why I was born the way I was born. So
And
you
how,
see,
and how were you born? What?
I had one of my legs was not properly formed, so I had a clubbed foot and twisted tibia bone at birth, and so I had a lot of surgeries when I was a little kid. I mean, before kindergarten, I
Oh,
was having surgeries for them to try and make my feet, shaped properly so I could get around normally. You know, just to be able to walk and play ball or ride bikes or swim or do all the other stuff people do. They had to have a lot of surgery.
So that's awfully young to be going under full anesthesia.
Yeah.
And
Well, somebody brought that to my attention recently in a different way. It was like, where did you go? Because this person
yes.
was asking if I had been on another planet or something, because I think of all those early years in anesthesia.
Yes.
So I
Exactly.
was having surgeries from the time I was born till sixth grade.
Oh my heavens.
Sixth
You
grade.
know,
Sixth grade. What age is that, Dan?
Over age 11.
I forget.
Age 11.
Something like that. Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
A long time to suffer like that.
Yeah. Well, I felt pretty good about the whole thing. They did a good job. And there was a big separation in time between the first and the last. There was a gap of years with no surgery. But, that could be very well like an early opening into different vision, coming from all those times I was anesthetized that early in life, too.
So do you feel that something happened? And
I'm not sure.
the way you are because of those experiences?
Well, yes, in the bigger picture, yeah, and that's why I was investigating past lives, because I was asking, and I was also recognized early in life as a good writer, because I always liked to read and write. So I had two things. So I was born with, a crippled leg and an ability to write, and so I'm asking, why do I have those things? Yeah. So I find, eventually, I was just looking around, and one day I spotted, an interview with Dr. Brian Weiss, and so then I got, introduced to past lives subject that way. So then I got his book and see, what he had to say, and I thought it was pretty amazing. And then, back in the 80s and 90s and up to the early 2000s, I was the editor of the metaphysical magazines for Metro Atlanta. So, like, all the authors and musicians and everybody coming to town, I get to interview them. So, like, when Brian Weiss came, every time he had a new book out, I got to interview him. And so that was like 5 or 6 times, I guess. And
That's
then he did a
remarkable.
workshop on his techniques, and then I went to his workshop. So I met him live and in person, a number of times, interviewed him about his work, read his books. And so that's who I learned from. Well, you see, because earlier in my life, then I would ask my mother, I said, well, why do you think that, God has some people born crippled and some people born healthy? He goes, that's just the way he does it. I said, well, why did you do it that way? Well, who knows? So, but all of a sudden, when the past life thing came up, I said, I think I want to just, I'm curious. So at this point, I was just curious. And so what came out of that research for me was an answer as to like why I am. So it didn't change the way I do my life, but it was the first thing I ever heard that made sense.
What did you learn?
That I was in a past life a runner for the Aztecs, and I was a champion athlete and a messenger. And in that lifetime, though, I was never taught to read and write. And so, because in a lot of societies, only certain classes were taught to read and write, but, my job was to be an athlete in that one. So the message I got was that I was born into this life with a clear sign that it's not to be about athleticism, but about vision, expressing vision. So that was like the counterbalance to that other one where I was a champion athlete and couldn't read and write. But here in this lifetime, no, I'm not a champion athlete, but I made my living as a writer, and it's still part of my living because I write newsletters to my clients all the time. So,
wow.
My ability, in other words, was just, it was presented to me like that's why my life is going the way it is. And so it didn't change what I do because I'd already had the leg surgeries to take care of that, and I'd already had my education and my career as a writer.
So when you were a child, you talked a little bit about how you were speaking to your mom about the questions about your leg and your foot.
Right.
What was your family life like? Were they open to these topics, the spiritual topics?
Not really. I was raised in a real strict Catholic family. So we went to church all the time. Went to church Catholic school every day, went to Catholic church every day. And so we always followed church rules. So in Catholic education, they really didn't tell us anything about what other religions of the world are. They always their teaching was, we have the only right religion. You don't need to know about the other ones. So, of course, it was after I grew up and got out in the world a bit that then I got to be familiar with other people who practiced other religions. And then I got invited to, go to their services and ceremonies and stuff and see what they do. And so it was kind of interesting, like once I got out in the world and find out there's a whole bunch of other interesting spiritual traditions or religions, that gave me whole different perspectives. But no, growing up, nothing that we talk about now was talked about in our house, nothing metaphysical. There was no Reiki, no Tarot, no, you know what I mean? No past lives, no karma, no, not even astrology.
Mine too, and I wasn't brought up as a Catholic. We were poor people, and we were Methodist ministers people. The great Bible Belt sort of thing. So what I was sensing and feeling, even from a very young age, was poo-pooed and put down. So I would like to ask you, what on earth made you? I can understand the writing part and the past life regression, but what made you want to be a healer of fellow men? What made you want to do readings and heal people?
Well, because in my position as a magazine editor, I was always interviewing different people. And so, even getting other people to write for me, a lot of those people were also people who were interested in healing and such. And so what I think got me curious was hearing everybody else's stories about their healing. So you see, as a writer, and it's funny because like now I evolved. I made a whole career out of being a writer and editor and writing teacher. And now the only writing I do is for my newsletter. But because I'm being a full-time healer, somebody, in recent years said, would you like to go back to magazine? I could get you a job as a magazine editor. And I said, no, I don't want to go backwards. I said, I've been there and I've done that. But now I used to just write about the healing, but now I am the healing.
So that was a stepping stone.
Yeah. So that was part of the way I learned.
Yes.
That was I would never have got to meet people like Brian Weiss in person if it hadn't been for my position as editor.
Way leads on to way. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, it started because I was interviewing these people and learning their stories and learning their experiences. And the more of that stuff I heard, then the more I wanted to try and do it.
But there must have been a catalyst that made you think, I can do this.
Especially if you
I
have,
was meant to do this.
especially if you have healthcare workers as your spirit guides.
Yes. And another interesting thing that's happened since they joined me, a lot of my clients are nurses.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
this
it's kind
is
of funny.
really-
People just call me. They say, I'm just Googling you. And what do you do for a living? I'm a nurse. And it's like not even just local, because I mean, I've had some, long distance clients from the East Coast and stuff. I'm just Googling you. Yeah, I'm here in Philadelphia, and you just popped up on my radar. I said, how? I'm in Colorado, or Boston, or New York or Chicago, and it's like, how did I just happen to be come up for you way out there? Because I didn't buy any ads way out there or anything.
Well, I think one thing
So I always take that as a clear sign that Spirit wanted us to meet.
We've all learned that location doesn't matter. That's independent. It seems completely independent from.
No, well, you know what I mean. But if you were
unexplained.
looking for somebody here, you wouldn't usually end up with a New York address or something.
Sure, sure. So all of this fits.
I don't know.
All of this fits with your unexplained. You had shared with me earlier that you have had a number of unexplained things, and they all seem to tie together. So fill us in. Fill us in on what those mystery pieces are.
I'm just not certain what all the mystery pieces, but what I'm feeling is that I keep being moved in the direction of doing more healing, and that this is really what I'll be doing the rest of my life. Because I'm getting, more and more satisfactory results. Some of that too comes with lots of practice, but I'm getting really good results with my clients, and so it feels good. So I just keep feeling like I'm just really becoming, this full-time healer who's good at it. Whereas I didn't think that's what I was going to be earlier in my life. I thought I would just be a professional writer, So, it kind of like, I'm living in a whole different direction than I thought I was going to be living.
You almost died, didn't you?
Yeah.
You told me about an incident.
Well,
one or two incidents, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that again, the one where I was a lot younger, and I crashed my car into a tree, and back then I wasn't even wearing a seatbelt, and I didn't have my wallet with me, and I was just like. So, I banged out the windshield, but it didn't hardly even cut my skin. And so anyway, I was stable, so I got up and was standing by my car. And of course, then the cops came. And so they had, asked for ID, and I didn't have my ID with me. So they took me to jail, and they put me in a cell because there was, so I had to call my wife at the time and ask her to bring my wallet. So she had to come down to the station and get me. But the thing is, while I was in the cell waiting for her to come with my ID, and this is in Chicago, in a Chicago jail. And so this uniformed cop comes right up to my cell, and I'm the only one in it. And he says, "Yeah, I was just having a few beers with your dad the other night." I said, "Nah, I don't think so." He says, "Yeah, his name's Mike. Yeah, he works in construction. Yeah." He said, "You couldn't have had a beer with him the other night. He's already been dead for a few years." And of course, I don't know the cop's name. I never see his name badge or anything. But the funny thing is, it's just like he knew my dad's name. He knew what he did, And he said he had a son named Dan.
Oh my gosh!
And that's, what? There aren't that many people with the same name. I mean, really, like even in Chicago, this is an old Polish family name. And when I was growing up in Chicago, there wasn't that long a list of people with the same name. So, having this cop walk up to my cell and say, "I was just having a beer with your dad." My dad had died several years before that.
And yet,
so, I don't know
he had
what.
just come from the pub.
Yeah.
having a beer with your dad.
Yeah.
And did you know anything about the pub? Was this a place that your dad would have
No,
frequented?
he didn't name the place that I can recall. It was, he's at a neighborhood bar. And
Enough
like I
to
say,
blow your mind,
guy
though.
was looking like a Chicago cop
Oh my goodness,
in uniform.
that's remarkable. That's
It's like, I don't know. And so, for a long time I thought, well, it was probably a hangover thing or, a brain trick or something. So it's kind of like, that's where I put it in the back of my memory for a long time. It's like,
And then you had another experience.
Yeah. Which which one are you asking me about?
I think it was you had mentioned to me that you had to go to the hospital. You were having.
Okay. Yes. Is back in the year 2000, I had a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
And so when I was in the hospital, of course, they put me in ICU right away because they had to transfer me to another hospital where they could do heart surgery. Okay. So basically, I was just in ICU for 3 days getting stabilized. And I remember, some funny things about that. Like, I remember when they first brought me in, like, the receptionist said, I heard her call the doctor and say, "We got a real one." It's like, what? People coming here faking this? and so anyway, so then they got me in this kind of upright chair, and they got intravenous going on, and they just kept pumping all those maximum doses of everything, and I just look at them, and I see the nurse looking at the monitor behind me. She goes, "You see that?" And then I just look at them and say, "You got anything else? Is that all you got?" And they said, "We're already giving you the maximum." Yeah. So then, then they put me in a room, of course, and then, you have tubes everywhere, and you hooked up to monitors, and then, of course, it's just like real dark in there, and they're just monitoring you for a few days to get you stabilized. Because what it turned out is I had a blood clot by the heart, and so they had to go in and, I got a stent. So they went up to the modern surgery with the little catheter, right? So anyway, I can't do anything for a while, but I noticed that every time the nurses were coming in to check on me, they'd be whispering and going, "Shh, quiet, he might die," and I'm going. So anyway, one nurse, I always remember her, and she would start coming up and whispering dirty jokes in my ear. I loved her for that, because that was the only thing popping up that I could relate to, So then one day she comes and whispers in my ear when she's in checking my vitals. She goes, "Don't worry, you're gonna get better. You're gonna get over this, and you'll have sex again."
I like it.
And as soon as I heard her say that, I wanted to unstrap myself and get out of bed.
Right.
And so, well, you see, one of my characters that I relate to in my spirituality is the god Pan, the old Greek god Pan, and he's always a fun-loving god, and he's known for being real sexual. So I took that nurse's message as a message from Pan, because here I am strapped down in a hospital, wondering if I'm going to live, and so here comes the nurse saying,
and here she came
with
this right information.
Oh, I think that's amazing.
Brilliant.
Ian, my husband, just had 2 heart attacks. Well, last year now. He had. We had a bit of. He's the joker in the family. You don't laugh at Ian's joke, because if you laugh, you get some more. All right. So, but he's not a Pan character at all. He's very, very down to earth. But he had 2 heart attacks, and I was always always, it was really strange, but a similar sort of story to yours. The ambulance came and he said to Ian, he said, do you want the good news or the bad news? And Ian didn't say anything. And he said, well, the good news is I'm here. The bad news is you're having a massive heart attack. Then he was a paramedic. He came in his own little car. And then the ambulance arrived and they whisked him off to the hospital. Asked me to follow behind the ambulance. Well, we live on the Tyne in the northeast of England. And the Tyne Tunnel is open 24/7. But on this particular night, the ambulance went through, and when it came to us going up to the sort of barrier, the barrier came down and said stop. All right, and my stepson said to me, "That's never ever happened to me before," and I said, "It's okay. I know what it is." I said, "They're saying to me, stop worrying. Everything's going to be all right. Just stop." And that's how I got through that night. We were 20 minutes waiting at the stoplight, which has never happened before, ever. So I knew that he was going to be okay. The second time, he frightened me to death. But he's okay now. He's fit and fine.
Dan, I wanted to let
That's
you know
good.
that when you were telling your story, an ascended master had come through. So I was picking that up. And the moment you said Pan, it registered. So you definitely have somebody to back you up on your story. To say, yep, that's pretty much how it happened. The other thing that I picked up was when you were telling us the story about being the Aztec runner, the Aztec messenger. Some information that came through was in that lifetime, you had been sent to do reconnaissance or some kind of investigation to another tribal community. So it would be on land, for them. And you were caught on their land, spying, I guess. And so much for running away. They weren't going to let you go. And that actually was the end of that lifetime. So once you were caught, so you had been the runner up until that point, and then the running had to stop.
Well, too, I got exactly the same ending. I agree.
Okay.
No, because I did this session many years ago.
Right.
But you see, what I find too was when you do past life regressions, you don't forget them. They come up to present conscious and they stay there.
And it feels very visceral.
The ending of the story that I got years ago was the same as what you just said.
Right. So it was almost like the ending of that one wrapped around and carried over into the starting of this one, the not running. The not running.
Yeah.
So that had its chance. That had its chance to have that turnaround. I think the thing that I find really, really fascinating is, could that be where this feeling of divine protection? You wrapped your car around a tree, you lived. And then your dad suddenly, his presence suddenly came, even though you had said he had been passed for a few years. Then you were in the hospital, you were maxed out on meds. And again, you came through and you were protected. So this to me feels like very much quintessential experiences. And that's exactly why we're all here talking together, is just about these kinds of things where they're pieces of a very, very complex, larger kind of puzzle, but they're all definitely from the same box.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan, I've often found that people with mediumistic gifts, and they seem to have had to suffer in some way. in whatever way you perceive you with your leg and perhaps being killed in a past life. We seem to have come into this lifetime, with issues,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have to get through those issues. And in order to do that, it makes us a servant of giving a service to others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's how it works for me. Not that I've suffered any really terrible ailment like yourself, but when I was born with double pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born with what they call a cowl cap. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I was born with a second skin over my head.
That's like a traditional sign for a seer.
Is it? I didn't know that. You see, you've enlightened me. My mother told me that it was a sign to say that I would never drown, because we came from a fishing fraternity. So she said, "Oh, you'll never drown." So I've never been afeard of water in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's sort of my life because of that. I've always had bad lungs. I've got awful lungs. I've got what they call COPD.
Mm.
And I've always been quite a bad asthmatic, although for the last 5 years I've not had a really serious attack at all. But it seems for some reason we have to have gone through the mill in order to make us good servants.
They say, when they refer to the wounded healer, I mean, one aspect of that is that people who have been wounded or suffered through some illness or tragedy or whatever, that the people that can rebound from that make some of the greatest healers.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you can have maybe empathy for others, or being more compassionate. But that's part of like maybe the part we play in society. That like we're not here to be champion athletes or something. We're here to help heal, and that it's also part of that dynamic of a few years ago they had the international conference for people who had near-death experiences was here, and so I volunteered to work there, and I was doing like Reiki for people at the conference, and all those people that I met who had the near-death experiences, they all came back because they said, the crossing over wasn't so bad, but somebody up there in the spirit realm says, get on back down there. You got more work to do.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they all come back, not in their old profession anymore either. They're coming back, maybe to do hospice work or research or, counseling or healing work for other people. But it's interesting that they all made that kind of turnaround, and then they've, dedicated their energies now to helping and healing other people, whereas maybe they weren't that before.
Yeah. I agree with you totally. I've met lots of people that have had near-death experiences, and they all say the same thing. I didn't want to come back, but I knew that when I did come back, that I had to make a difference. I had to do something different with the rest of my life, which I find is, really it's fundamentally what we do on a day-by-day basis. Whatever happens in the morning really does configuring what we'll do in the afternoon. So if you think of it that way, you're going to do it better the next time. If we're all given another chance and another chance and another chance, then we're going to do it better. We improve with age.
Yeah.
From all of your surgeries, from all of those surgeries as a small child, you healed, yes?
Yes.
What would you say is the motivating force now from that experience, having healed from all of those surgeries?
I'm not sure how to answer the question, but I guess, when I look back at all those things too, like why did I survive all those things? Maybe that's to, have evolved into being a healer, same way as like other people, like the ones that had near-death experiences and came back to do hospice work or something. It's like it's that same kind of long turnaround thing where because earlier in my life, I wasn't picturing myself being a healer at all. I was like, well, I'll be a professional writer, or, I had other, kind of jobs too. I was in corporate management for a while, but you know what I mean? I thought this is my living. But then later on, I found out other things, and just out of pure curiosity. And I'll tell you, a funny one is that, so like when I was growing up in Chicago, there wasn't anything metaphysical going on. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't even a topic, not least with people I knew. Okay. Well, then after I took a corporate job that moved me around the country, and they kept dropping me off in cities where I had no friends, no relatives, didn't know anything, just had a job. So when they transferred me to Atlanta, here I am with nothing to do on the weekend, and I just pick up, the free newspaper and say, psychic fair this weekend. I says, wonder what that is. I think I'll go check it out. And it was just that simple of a thing, because like on another weekend, here, the new guy in town, here, there's a rock concert. I'll go to that, or go to a baseball game, or I'll go to an art fair. But then one day I saw a psychic fair, and I said, I've never been to one of those. and so then when I went in there and I got, a couple of readings from a couple of people, and I was like, this is kind of weird. How do these people know these things about me? I've never seen them before, And so I got kind of hooked on it, like, what's going on here? Or how does this stuff work? But it was really, in the midst of my working my corporate job, I just discovered things, what people do at psychic fairs, just totally on a lark one day.
So how did you start the tarot? How did you start your mediumistic work? How did you begin that?
Long time ago. I was vacationing, and in fact, there was a little store in Toronto. I just went to Toronto for a weekend just because I felt like it, just because it would look like fun. and so, here was this little gift shop, and they had this deck of cards there, and I could tell from the box it was a fortune teller. But at that time, I didn't know anything about what does that mean. But it was not expensive, so I bought it, and it didn't come with an instruction book. So I just had the cards. And so I'm taking them on, and I said, I wonder what this means. I wonder what that means. And I just kept meditating on the pictures. And, so then I didn't know how to work it, because I had no teacher and no book. So I just say to my spirit guides, because that's all I think of back then. I would say to my spirit guides, thank you for helping me do a good reading for this person. Because I just have them on my coffee table. So I would go to my day job and make my money that I supported myself with. But then anybody who wanted to visit me, the deck of cards would just sit on the coffee table, and people come, hey, can you do that? Sure. And of course, at that time, I was just thinking of it as an experiment. Like, I wonder if this stuff works. I wonder if I'm any good at it, or I wonder how to do it. So I was totally coming at it from the point of view of, like, I don't even know if this stuff works, but I'm just curious. So I thought of it as like a hobby or an experiment. And so for, probably 20 years, I just did free readings for anybody who wanted them, just for the practice. So I now consider that my apprenticeship.
Absolutely.
And so then I wasn't even trying to make money. I was just thinking of it as a hobby, because I had corporate jobs that paid me well. So then, what happened is that one day later on, after I saw people doing psychic fairs, I was thinking, I wonder what they know that I don't, because they're in psychic fair and I'm not. So then I went to the person who owned the psychic fair. I said, well, how do you get in here? And she said, well, you got to do a test reading for us so we can see what you're doing, and then you could buy a table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's how it was started.
Amazing how spirit draw us in any way, shape, or form. I've always done tarot in a totally spiritual way, and when you said, I didn't have a book, I was all, yes, that's it. It doesn't need a book. You just need your spirit guide. You just need them to influence what you're about to say. So great, absolutely great.
And I will say, today too, one of the things that makes it more fascinating is obviously in the years since I've learned about tarot, I've read books about its history and whatnot. And today you got a lot of these artists making up their own new deck and selling them on Kickstarter or GoFundMe or something. And so I purchased quite a number of decks directly from the artist. And it's really beautiful, just that whole spectrum of art. And I always tell people too, you don't have to be a professional reader or something to get value from this. If you think about it as a self-teaching tool and go home and meditate on a card a day and journal about it, so you'll be teaching yourself all kind of life lessons. So then it's not fortune telling, it's fortune creating.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you're learning something valuable, you're teaching yourself important life lessons using these cards as a cue for you to teach yourself. So,
absolutely. I think precognitive thought, future events, comes as a bonus.
Yeah.
It's not a foregone conclusion.
No.
Yeah. We don't, that's not what we do. But if something comes through and we are given it, then it's up to us to give that information out. But no, great. I like to meet fellow spiritual healers.
Yeah.
It really is very, very powerful to hear people's own relationship to something that matters to them. So whether it's their spirit guides, whoever is their higher power, I find it absolutely fascinating to hear the different tools that help people awaken this aspect inside themselves. Mark, I wanted to ask you if you had something that you can share for us about healing guidance from your experience.
Well, I've just in relation to some of the things Dan was saying, I've heard a lot of stories about loved ones visiting people, loved ones who have passed over, visiting people at key moments of their life. One that comes to mind is of a rock star who was in a band called Van Halen. And his father actually visited him in his room the night that his father died. And these things tend to happen in key moments of people's lives. And I was curious as to when the incident occurred with your dad. Was that a time in your life when you needed to hear from him, or when you needed to, were you thinking about him, or was there sort of a key moment that communication sort of helped you out?
It's hard to say. I was at that time young, married, had two little kids, and my father had died, I think, probably 4 years before this incident. He just had a heart attack one night and went all in one night. So it was it was real quick, very unexpected. And at the time too, I would say in the growing up teenage years, I would have disagreements with my father, and so I would say, at that time, it kind of, was the suddenness was, overwhelming, because it was one day. So, it was just sort of I would say we didn't, our last encounters weren't always happy ones, because we just had, I'm a growing up teenager and we had disagreements about things. And so, you couldn't say that last chapter there was all happy, and I thought that was, I was happy to get that message. And of course, having a beer with my dad would be a lot more believable than an angel with my dad. But,
because you were you were put in that position and you were put in a cell. There was no escaping. It was It was nice and quiet. It was a perfect place for that little message to be delivered to you without any escape routes.
So I kind of got an affirmation at that time, I think. You know what I mean? That's what I would feel. It's like, well, Dad's checking on you, but Dad's dead. So how's Dad checking on you if Dad's dead,
All the more reason.
Even looking at the whole situation, like you weren't taken to the hospital, you weren't taken for medical attention, you were put in a jail cell,
And well, back in those days, it was different. Back in those days, people could get DUIs and it wasn't even a serious problem. It wasn't even a serious fine or something.
Yeah.
But that back in the days too, when you could smoke cigarettes in hospitals
and airplanes too. Yeah. But I guess the other thing that I sort of relate to you in your life journey is the way you found yourself in these different situations that maybe seem to have no meaning at the time, but later on, you feel like editing a magazine that every day you're reading and writing about these people that you end up being. And I've noticed that a lot with sort of things that I was doing in particular times, and some of the things you're having no fun doing them whatsoever. But later on, you see, oh, right, that's what I was supposed to be doing, or that's the lesson I was supposed to take from that. And I'm kind of curious, is there any discipline or any area of this work that you want to do next that you haven't already done?
Well, it's an interesting thing because sometimes people ask me, for example, I don't do mediumship. And, I thought about studying, but God, I know there are different ways you approach that than the ways I do other things. And for some reason, every time I think about, should I do that? Because I got clients that ask for it. But what I really do with the clients now is I refer them to other people who are mediums because that's not what I do. So, but then the thought, it seems funny that the thought will come in, well, maybe you should learn how to do that. But then another note comes in and says, nah, you don't need to bother knowing that. Just keep doing the stuff you're doing.
Dan, you've been mediumistic for most of your existence.
Yeah.
What you're doing with the tarot, you say to me that you are linking with your spirit guides.
Yes.
Not reading the book. So this information is coming directly to you from spirit. And so therefore, they are using you as the medium to transmit their message through the tarot to your clients. You are mediumistic. I can feel
there you
it.
go, Dan. There you go.
It's not always about reading other people. It's about projecting a signal, and you projected signals to those nurses and connected with them on a level that they knew what to come and whisper in your ear. This stuff's not coincidence.
Yeah.
It's projecting as well as receiving.
I've also taught Reiki to nurses and caregivers and massage therapists. So they combine that now with their physical skills. But, it's sort of I'm going to say it's a beautiful thing because it works in with a lot of other things. Because sometimes too, when I'm doing Reiki on somebody, they give me a message for that person. And so that's not always because I'm not trying to do a reading, but sometimes when I'm just doing the healing and just, placing my hands, they say, you should tell her this. And it's okay, I don't know why you're telling me this, but I'll tell her. and so it just
that's mediumistic.
Yeah.
That is. That's
I'm going to do this stuff for the rest of my life, and I'll enjoy doing it. And I don't think of it as a job, not in a sense that people say I'm working to get this much money and I'm working these many hours or whatever. This is what I do. That's why I'm available 7 days for my clients.
And let us know where
our
viewers can reach you. How can they find you?
Okay, my website is magicalawakenings.com.
Okay.
And so there, I also send out a newsletter to a lot of people, but also if you Google psychics in Longmont, Colorado, or Reiki healers in Longmont, Colorado, I will come up at a Google search. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm getting a bit of a psychic impression right now that you might have a special deal on for nurses.
It has been a wonderful pleasure to have you with us, and
thank you
so much for taking your time out of obviously your very creative and busy day to spend it with us and help us understand some of your quintessential experiences, and for giving us the opportunity to share in that with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
It's been lovely. Lovely meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
Weird and wonderful, we go deep into your stories and try to get more answers. If this roundtable feels like the kind of family dinner conversation you wish you could have in your midst, then submit your story, because we want to hear what you have to tell us. Hit YouTube subscribe, and you'll never miss the next episode. Please donate if you feel you're inspired by this endeavor and would like more episodes.